You've been told sleep is just closing your eyes, switching off, and hoping for rest. But if that were true, why do so many people wake up more tired than when they went to bed? Why do you still toss and turn at night, caught in the storm of your own thoughts, unable to silence the noise in your head? The truth is, real sleep isn't just about your body, it's about your mind. For thousands of years, Buddhist monks have practiced the art of letting go of stress, of worry, of yesterday and tomorrow. They discovered that sleep can be more than rest. It can be a sacred practice, a nightly glimpse of peace, a mini nirvana where the weight of the world dissolves and you return to pure stillness. Imagine that, every night becoming a doorway into freedom, every dream a teacher, every moment of silence a path to happiness. Tonight, as you listen, you will begin to feel it. Your breath will slow, your racing thoughts will soften, and a calm you may have forgotten will rise gently from within. And when you wake, you'll see that happiness doesn't come from chasing or controlling life. It comes from surrender, from awareness, from the quiet strength already inside you. This isn't just another guide to help you fall asleep. This is 3 hours of timeless Buddhist lessons, an inner journey to peace, clarity, and joy. A chance to rest deeply and to live lighter. Are you ready to close your eyes and step into that freedom? Let's begin. When the lights go out and silence fills the room, most people think sleep is nothing more than the body shutting down for a few hours. But what if that silence held something much deeper? What if sleep was not just rest, but a doorway, a hidden passage into peace that most of us pass through without ever noticing? For centuries, Buddhist masters described deep sleep as a taste of freedom itself, a nightly reminder that the self you cling to is not as solid as you believe. Tonight, we step into that mystery. In the Buddhist tradition, self-awareness is not a luxury, it is the ground beneath every step. Without awareness, life becomes a blur of habits, worries, and restless chasing. With it, even ordinary moments glow with meaning. When monks looked at sleep, they did not see wasted hours or emptiness. They saw a natural glimpse of what happens when the ego dissolves. In waking life, the I feels constant. I think, I plan, I want, I fear. Yet in deep sleep, that whole identity disappears, and still life continues. Breathing continues. The heart continues. Consciousness, in a quiet form, remains. To the monks, this was proof that the ego is not the core of who you are. Think of how radical that realization island. You spend your days defending your image, building your identity, fearing loss, craving approval, chasing goals. But in the deepest layers of sleep, none of that exists. The clinging stops, the battles stop. There is no me and no mine, only stillness, only being. This is why ancient teachers called deep sleep a mini nirvana, a state where the fire of desire, aversion, and delusion goes out for a while. You may not remember it when you wake, but your body and mind know. That refreshment you feel after a good night's sleep is not just physical recovery, it is the echo of having touched, for a brief time, a place beyond self. This is not a theory, it is something you experience every single night, whether you notice it or not. What makes the Buddhist view so transformative is the invitation to bring awareness to what is usually unconscious. Instead of treating sleep as dead time, you begin to see it as a practice, a teacher, a reminder. Self-awareness here means pausing before bed to reflect, who is it that will dissolve tonight? The face in the mirror, the story in your mind, the endless worries, they all drop away. And yet, you remain. That insight softens fear. It makes you less desperate to hold on so tightly. One reason many people struggle with sleep is that they cannot let go. They lie in bed, still clutching the day, still carrying unsaid words, unfinished tasks, unresolved emotions. But the body cannot rest while the mind is gripping so hard. The Buddhist approach says, rest begins with release. To release, you must be aware of what you are holding. Self-awareness is the torch that shows you where the tension hides. You notice the jaw clenched, the shoulders heavy, the thoughts circling like vultures, and by seeing them, you begin to soften. Awareness is gentle. It does not demand, it does not scold. It simply sees. That simple act of seeing without judgment is itself the doorway to rest. When you notice a thought instead of becoming trapped in it, it loses its weight. When you notice your breath instead of fighting with it, it steadies naturally. This is how monks could sit quietly for hours, resting deeper than sleep itself, simply by watching the mind without clinging. For you, the practice begins in bed, in the quiet moments before you drift off. Instead of trying to control the mind, you observe. Instead of forcing rest, you allow. Science now confirms what Buddhists discovered long ago. Awareness changes the brain. Neuroscientists speak of the default mode network, the region tied to self-referential thinking. It is most active when you are worrying, replaying the past, or fantasizing about the future. In meditation and in deep, dreamless sleep, that network quiets down. The sense of I, me, mine fades. This is why rest feels so freeing. Your brain is literally stepping out of its own prison. But monks did not stop at describing this as biology. To them, the nightly vanishing of the self was a teacher of wisdom. If you disappear every night and return every morning, how real is this I you cling to? If it can vanish so easily, maybe it was never as solid as you thought. That realization does not make life meaningless. It makes it lighter. You stop carrying the ego like a heavy stone. You start moving through life with a softer grip, more willing to forgive, more willing to let things flow. This reframing of sleep changes how you approach the night. No longer is it a battle against insomnia, no longer a chore you endure. It becomes a sacred ritual, a return to truth. Each night is a little death, a gentle rehearsal for the final letting go that awaits all beings. Instead of fearing it, you welcome it, you trust it, and in that trust, peace arises. There is also a practical power here. Many people lie awake at night because their identity is still active. They replay arguments, anticipate tomorrow, measure themselves against others. All of this is the ego refusing to dissolve. But if you see sleep as mini nirvana, you remind yourself, the ego does not have to stay awake. It can rest. It can fall away. You do not have to solve your life before bed. You do not have to control tomorrow. You simply step aside and let the great tide of sleep carry you. That is not weakness, it is wisdom. The Buddha once compared the self to a flame. It flickers, it changes, it depends on fuel. When the fuel runs out, the flame goes out. Sleep shows you this every night. The fuel of thought, identity, striving burns low, and the flame dims into silence. You awake again, but you are never exactly the same flame as before. Something has shifted, however subtly. To see this clearly is to understand impermanence, one of the deepest truths in Buddhism. Impermanence is not just about death or decay. It is also about renewal, about how each night allows a new beginning. This is why awareness of sleep is not separate from awareness of life. The same qualities that help you rest, letting go, trusting, softening, are the ones that help you live happier. Each time you surrender to sleep with awareness, you are practicing a kind of courage. The courage to release control, to accept change, to welcome silence. Over time, this transforms how you face your days. Stress loses some of its grip because you have trained yourself to release. Anxiety loosens because you know how to soften. Self-importance fades because you see, again and again, that the self is not as fixed as you once believed. For those who suffered with insomnia, this teaching is particularly liberating. The usual approach is to fight, to count, to control, to wrestle the mind into stillness. But awareness says, stop fighting, look gently at what is present. Maybe it is restlessness, maybe sadness, maybe fear. Whatever it is, meet it with presence, not resistance. That simple shift often eases the very tension that blocks rest. Sleep comes not by force but by surrender, and awareness is the path to surrender. Buddhist teachers sometimes describe the three states, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, as a cycle of illusion and truth. Waking is the illusion of a solid self. Dreaming is the play of the mind. Deep sleep is the taste of emptiness. The wise use all three as teachings. In waking life, awareness shows you the ego is a performance. In dreams, awareness shows you how the mind creates whole worlds out of nothing. In sleep, awareness shows you freedom from both. Together, they reveal the path to nirvana, not as some distant heaven but as the very texture of your own mind. As you reflect on this, notice how your relationship with sleep begins to change. No longer a nightly struggle, it becomes an ally. No longer a blank void, it becomes a teacher. And this shift brings both rest and happiness. Rest because you are no longer fighting. Happiness because you begin to live from a place of freedom rather than clinging. The more you practice awareness, the more subtle your perception becomes. You start to notice how the mind resists sleep, how it clings to thought, how it fears silence. But instead of being trapped by these habits, you observe them like passing clouds. In this way, each night becomes a meditation, each dreamless interval a glimpse of liberation. Over time, the boundary between meditation and sleep dissolves, and both become expressions of the same truth. The self is not as fixed as you believe, and peace is closer than you think. This lesson is not about theories to memorize, but about experience to feel. Tonight, when you lay your head down, remember the self that worries, the self that fears, the self that clings, none of it survives deep sleep. And yet, something deeper continues. Rest in that, trust that. That is the foundation of awareness, the key to both sleep and happiness. The awareness that the self dissolves each night is not only a lesson in freedom, but also an invitation to approach life with greater tenderness. When you see how fragile the identity is, how it vanishes and reappears like a shadow at dawn, you begin to feel the weight of impermanence pressing gently on your heart. It is here that compassion must arise, not only for the world but also for yourself. Before you can sleep in peace, you must learn the art of letting go. This is what many Buddhist teachers call the practice of daily death. Daily death is not about fear, it is about release. Every night, you are given a chance to practice the great letting go, the same letting go that death will one day demand from you. To carry this practice into sleep means to unburden yourself, to place down what you cannot carry into the night. The quarrels, the regrets, the heavy expectations, the tight grip on tomorrow, all of it belongs to the waking self. And the waking self does not survive the night. To cling to it in bed is to fight against the very nature of sleep itself. The practice begins with honesty. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I cannot take into the night? Perhaps it is a resentment towards someone who spoke harshly to you. Perhaps it is guilt for not finishing your tasks. Perhaps it is fear of what tomorrow may bring. These weights keep the mind restless. The Buddhist approach is to see them clearly, name them, and then release them, not by forcing them away, but by recognizing their impermanent nature. Impermanence is not an abstract concept. You see it every day, in the face of a withering flower, in the changing seasons, in the lines deepening on your own skin. Everything shifts, everything flows. To resist that truth is to suffer. To accept it is to find peace. When you lay in bed, aware of impermanence, you remind yourself, This resentment will pass. This guilt will pass. This fear will pass. None of it can be held forever. Death will take it from you one day, but tonight you practice releasing it willingly. This practice transforms the very quality of sleep. Instead of lying in bed consumed by unresolved feelings, you create a ritual of closure. Some people use prayer, some use journaling, some sit quietly in reflection. The method is less important than the intention: to meet the end of the day as if it were the end of a life. To look back with honesty, to acknowledge what has been done, to forgive what remains unfinished, and to rest in the knowledge that everything dissolves. Compassion begins here. Without compassion for yourself, letting go becomes harsh, almost like a punishment. But with compassion, you soften. You say to yourself, "I did my best with the time and energy I had today. I am human, I am learning, and it is enough." This kindness is the ground from which release becomes possible. Without it, you cling to perfection, to the need to be more, do more, control more. But the self that enters sleep cannot carry those burdens. Self-compassion is what allows the hand to finally unclench. Buddhist teachers often encouraged reflection on death, not to create fear, but to create clarity. When you remember that your days are numbered, the petty worries shrink. That harsh comment from a colleague, that delayed payment, that undone chore, they lose their power. What remains is what matters: kindness, honesty, presence. This same clarity can be brought to your nightly practice. Before sleep, remember, if this were the last time I close my eyes, what do I need to release? That question alone can clear the mind more deeply than hours of tossing and turning. There is also a practical wisdom in practicing daily death. Many people carry unresolved conversations in their minds. They replay words again and again, sharpening their own suffering. But when you see the day as finished, as gone forever, you no longer rehearse the past. You treat it as a story already ended. This frees the nervous system, which no longer has to brace for battles that are already over. The body rests when the mind stops pretending it can rewrite the past. Sleep, in this sense, is not just rest. It is forgiveness. Forgiveness of yourself for being imperfect, forgiveness of others for not meeting your expectations, forgiveness of life for not bending to your will. Every night is a chance to forgive, to loosen the knot of resentment that tightens throughout the day. Without this, sleep is shallow, troubled by dreams of conflict. With forgiveness, sleep becomes a surrender into peace. Compassion also means recognizing your own limits. So many people drive themselves with endless tasks, endless goals, as if life were a race to be completed. But when you view the night as a daily death, you see that every day must be complete in itself. The list will always remain unfinished. The work will always spill into tomorrow. To rest requires admitting this truth and treating yourself with kindness despite it. Instead of berating yourself for what was left undone, you give yourself permission to lay it down. In that act, compassion flows naturally. This practice of daily death also shifts your relationship with control. Much of your stress comes from trying to manage what is beyond you. You plan, you calculate, you imagine countless outcomes. But death shows you that all control is temporary. Each night, you rehearse this lesson: control is an illusion. The future unfolds whether or not you grip it tightly. By releasing control at night, you prepare yourself to meet the morning with greater calm. Instead of clinging to plans, you learn to meet what comes. This flexibility is one of the deepest forms of compassion you can offer yourself. Some people fear the thought of death, but this nightly practice transforms that fear into trust. Death is no longer a terror but a teacher. You see that letting go does not end you, it frees you. Each morning you rise renewed, lighter for having laid down your burdens. This rehearsal lessens the ultimate fear, so that when the final night comes, it is not a stranger but a familiar friend. The practice of daily death makes you more alive, more grateful, more awake to the present, because you no longer take tomorrow for granted. To live this way is to weave compassion into every layer of your being. Compassion for the part of you that strives, compassion for the part that fails, compassion for the part that fears. Each night you embrace them all, and then you release them. This is not denial but wisdom. The recognition that clinging to what fades only multiplies suffering. Letting go is the highest kindness. Practical rituals can support this. Some choose to light a candle at night, watching the flame as a reminder of the day burning down. Others write down their worries on paper and place them aside, symbolically handing them to the night. Some recite verses of gratitude, acknowledging the gifts of the day before letting them pass. These acts are not superstitions but skillful means, anchors for the mind to recognize the day's ending. Each one reinforces the truth. This chapter is finished. Now it is time to release. Daily death also reshapes how you view relationships. Every night, you recognize that you cannot control how others see you, what they think, or how they act. The anger, the misunderstandings, the longing, all must be let go with the setting Sunday. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop demanding that life conform to your desires. In this release, relationships become lighter, less entangled, more rooted in genuine care rather than control. Compassion extends outward because you are no longer clinging to your own script. When sleep comes after this letting go, it carries a different quality. The dreams are less troubled, the body rests more deeply, and the mind awakens with clarity. You do not wake with the heaviness of unfinished arguments or unprocessed fears. Instead, you rise like someone who has been reborn, because in a way, you have. Daily death is not a loss, it is a rebirth into presence. The wisdom of impermanence becomes not only a teaching, but a lived experience. Each night you practice, each morning you awaken, you are reshaping your relationship with life itself. You begin to see that happiness does not come from clinging, from control, from finishing every task. Happiness comes from the freedom to let go, from compassion for yourself in your imperfection, from trust in the flow of life. This is why monks practiced reflection before bed, often chanting verses that reminded them of death. Not as a morbid ritual, but as a reminder to live fully, to release what no longer serves, to rest without regret. In this way, their sleep became meditation, their nights became as meaningful as their days. You too can adopt this practice, not by retreating to a monastery, but by turning your bedroom into a space of release, a place where the day is allowed to end with dignity. The practice of daily death is the highest expression of self-compassion. To release is not to abandon yourself, but to honor yourself. To let go of anger, guilt, or fear is not weakness, but wisdom. It is a recognition that your heart deserves rest, that your mind deserves peace, that your body deserves stillness. By treating each night as a sacred rehearsal, you give yourself the gift of freedom again and again. And in this freedom, both sleep and happiness blossom naturally. Letting go before sleep is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of another path that unfolds in the hidden hours of the night. When the body rests and the conscious mind loosens its grip, a different kind of world opens. This world is not bound by the rules of waking life. It bends, it shifts, it surprises. For many, dreams feel like nonsense or random noise, but to Buddhist practitioners, dreams are not accidents. They are mirrors, reflecting the patterns of the mind, the imprints of karma, and the subtle energies that shape daily experience. To treat them as meaningless is to overlook one of the most profound teachers available to us. Dreams reveal the truth of how the mind works when it is free from the mask of daytime control. In waking life, you edit yourself. You hide certain emotions, you suppress impulses, and you pretend to be more stable than you really are. But at night, When the conscious gatekeeper relaxes, the mind speaks in images, stories, and emotions that rise from deeper layers. This is why Buddhist traditions, such as dream yoga, taught practitioners to pay close attention to what arises. Each dream holds a message, not in a superstitious sense, but as a direct reflection of the mental and karmic habits that shape life. When you look at dreams through this lens, you begin to see them as living lessons. A dream of running from something can point to fears you deny in daylight. A dream of conflict may reveal unresolved anger. A dream of loss may expose attachments that weigh heavily on the heart. The images may be strange, but the emotions are precise. This is the Dharma of dreams. They show you what you most need to see, often in ways that bypass the intellect. In Buddhist teachings, karma is not fate. It is the momentum of past actions and choices. Every thought, word, and deed leaves an imprint, and these imprints ripple through the mind. Dreams are one way these imprints surface. If you have lived with kindness, your dreams often carry lightness. If you have been consumed by greed or fear, your dreams can become tangled, heavy, even nightmarish. In this way, dreams become feedback, showing you the shape of your karma in real time. To dismiss them is to throw away a mirror that could reveal how to grow. Dream yoga developed as a way to use this mirror consciously. Practitioners trained themselves to recognize that they were dreaming, a state now called lucid dreaming. But unlike modern lucid dreaming practices, the goal was not to control the dream or seek pleasure. The purpose was awareness. To see the dream as dream, to rest in the recognition that all experiences, whether waking or sleeping, are constructed by the mind. This insight cut directly to the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Everything is impermanent. Everything is empty of fixed identity. Everything arises and passes through causes and conditions. Dreams are the perfect teacher of this because they show you entire worlds built out of nothing but thought. Think of how a dream can feel completely real until the moment of waking. You can laugh, cry, sweat, or panic in response to something that has no physical reality. The body reacts as if it were real. Then you wake, and the illusion dissolves. But what about waking life? You take it as real, solid, undeniable. Yet from the perspective of Buddhist insight, waking life is another kind of dream. It feels real only because you are immersed in it, because the mind projects solidity onto the flow of changing conditions. In this way, dreams become a rehearsal for enlightenment. If you can see the dream as dream, perhaps you can also see waking life as dreamlike, impermanent, insubstantial, and free. The emotional content of dreams is also a direct training in mindfulness. A nightmare that floods you with fear can show you where fear hides in your daily life. A joyful dream can reveal what nourishes your heart. By reflecting on these experiences upon waking, you cultivate self-knowledge. The practice is not to obsess over symbols or to force fixed meanings onto every image, but to feel the emotional tone and connect it to the patterns of thought and action in daily life. In this way, dreams become teachers of both wisdom and compassion. Compassion grows when you realize that the struggles in your dreams are often the same struggles others face in waking life. If you wake from a dream of fear, you know what fear feels like in its raw form. This helps you understand others who live with fear each day. If you wake from a dream of longing, you understand the ache of desire that drives so many choices. By recognizing these states within yourself, even in dreams, you expand your ability to connect with others without judgment. Dreams also reveal how much of your suffering is self-created. You can dream of being trapped in a room, terrified, until you wake and realize there was no prison at all. How many times in waking life do you feel trapped by circumstances, only to later see that much of it was your own mind's creation? Dream practice helps you catch this earlier. When you realize how easily the mind can construct entire worlds, you become less attached to the solidity of your waking troubles. This does not mean dismissing them, but meeting them with a lighter heart. Some Buddhist texts describe dreams as the play of consciousness when freed from the senses. During the day, the mind is tied to sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. At night, these inputs are silent, and the mind turns inward. What arises then are the deeper imprints of thought and karma. By paying attention, you begin to map the hidden architecture of your mind. You see which habits are strong, which desires return again and again, which fears never rest. This awareness is not meant to depress you, but to guide you. It shows you where to place your practice, where to cultivate compassion, where to let go. There is a discipline in approaching dreams this way. Upon waking, instead of rushing into your day, you pause. You reflect on what the night revealed. You notice not only the story, but the feeling it left behind. Did you wake with a sense of peace or agitation? Did the dream expose an attachment you were unaware of? Did it reveal kindness, cruelty, or confusion? Each observation is a lesson. In this way, your sleep becomes as much a part of practice as meditation or study. Even nightmares, often dismissed as disturbances, are teachers. They show you what the mind resists. They bring shadow material into the open. Instead of fearing them, you can learn to meet them with compassion. If you are chased in a dream, perhaps in waking life you are running from a truth within yourself. If you lose something precious in a dream, perhaps you are clinging too tightly in life. Meeting these lessons with curiosity instead of fear transforms nightmares into guides. Over time, this approach to dreams reshapes how you see reality itself. You stop dividing life into useful and useless, real and unreal. You begin to see that everything waking or dreaming is a display of mind, an opportunity for awareness. This dissolves the boundary between night and day. Sleep is no longer just a break from living, but an extension of the path. Dreams are not interruptions, but instructions. The practice of dream awareness also strengthens mindfulness in waking hours. If you can train yourself to recognize the dream state, you sharpen the skill of noticing thoughts and emotions as they arise in daily life. The moment you see this is only a thought, you gain freedom. Just as recognizing a dream as dream frees you from its grip, recognizing a thought as thought frees you from unnecessary suffering. This is the bridge dream yoga offers, from nighttime awareness to daytime liberation. Dreams also serve as a reminder of the mystery of consciousness itself. Despite centuries of study, no scientist or philosopher can fully explain why dreams arise or why consciousness persists at all. In Buddhist thought, this mystery is not a problem to be solved, but a wonder to be embraced. Each dream is a glimpse into the boundless creativity of mind, the endless ways it can weave worlds. By contemplating this, you cultivate awe, humility, and respect for the depth of your own being. By treating dreams as Dharma teachers, you begin to live with greater curiosity, patience, and openness. You no longer dismiss parts of yourself as meaningless or broken. You see that even in the strangest dream, the mind is showing you something about its own nature. And through this recognition, you strengthen the qualities of awareness and compassion that Buddhism holds at its core. The night, once overlooked, becomes rich with guidance. Each dream, whether tender or terrifying, becomes a teaching. Each awakening in the dark becomes a chance to deepen mindfulness. With this practice, sleep is no longer just recovery, but revelation. And happiness arises naturally, not from controlling life, but from understanding it at every level, awake, asleep, and beyond. Dreams reveal how the mind creates worlds, but what often follows those insights is the struggle to fall back asleep. Many people experience it. The body feels heavy, the room is quiet, yet rest refuses to come. The harder you try, the further it slips away. This struggle is not just physical, it is a reflection of how you approach life itself. In Buddhism, this restless pushing is called striving, and it is one of the most subtle forms of suffering. To rest fully, you must learn the art of non-striving. Non-striving does not mean laziness or indifference. It is a way of being where effort flows naturally, without force, without the heavy hand of control. Zen calls it Wu Wei, effortless effort. It is the paradox that when you stop trying so hard, what you wanted begins to happen. Sleep is the perfect example. The more you demand it, the more the mind tightens. The more the mind tightens, the less rest arrives. But when you let go, when you stop making sleep a battle, the body finds its natural rhythm. This principle runs deeper than bedtime. It exposes how often you live by pushing, clenching, forcing outcomes. You try to control your day, control others, control your emotions, and this same control follows you to bed. Yet rest is the one place where control is impossible. Sleep cannot be commanded. It comes when conditions are right. The wisdom of non-striving teaches that peace comes not from fighting harder, but from loosening the grip. Think of how breath works. If you try to breathe perfectly, controlling every inhale and exhale, the breath becomes shallow and unnatural. But when you release control, the body breathes with ease, deeper than effort can reach. Sleep is like that. It arrives when you step out of the way. The mind, however, does not like stepping aside. It believes that effort is always the answer, that pushing harder is the path to results. Buddhism shows the opposite. Clinging creates suffering, and letting go creates space. Insomnia often comes from this trap. The mind says, "I must sleep now, I need rest for tomorrow." And the demand itself creates agitation. The harder you try, the more alert you become. This is the cycle of striving. Effort fuels resistance, resistance fuels effort. The way out is not more control but surrender. In Buddhism, surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is knowing when to release control and allow nature to take its course. Wu Wei is often misunderstood as doing nothing, but it is better described as acting in harmony with the flow of conditions. A tree does not strain to grow. It grows because the soil, sun, and water support it. Sleep works the same way. If the body is nourished, the mind softened, and the heart released, rest appears. The effort is not in forcing sleep, but in preparing the conditions gently and then allowing. This is effortless effort, creating the ground, then letting go. The paradox of non-striving is that it requires awareness. You must see the impulse to force and recognize it for what it is, another form of clinging. Most people lie in bed unaware of how tense they are, unaware of the inner voice demanding control. With awareness, you notice the jaw tightening, the breath speeding, the shoulders resisting. In that noticing, you relax. This is how mindfulness bridges to rest, by exposing the striving hidden in the body and mind. The art of non-striving also teaches humility. You realize that you are not the master of every process. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, the cells repair, all without your control. Sleep is part of this same mystery. It is the body's wisdom, not the mind's achievement. To recognize this is to bow to life itself, to trust the intelligence that sustains you. This trust is the soil of peace. There is a reason why monks emphasize effortlessness. They knew that striving extends beyond sleep into the search for enlightenment. People who grasp at awakening with desperation often entangle themselves further. The path unfolds when striving eases, when awareness and compassion replace control. Sleep, then, becomes a nightly lesson in this truth. Each time you release striving, you rehearse the wisdom of the path. Non-striving can be practiced in small ways before bed. You can sit quietly, not to force calmness, but simply to notice what is present. Thoughts may rise, feelings may come, and instead of trying to fix them, You watch. The mind begins to settle not because you demanded it, but because you stopped feeding it with resistance. This approach can extend to how you lie down. Instead of commanding sleep, you allow the body to sink, the breath to move naturally, the thoughts to drift without judgment. Slowly, rest comes on its own. There is also a deep link between striving and fear. When you try too hard to sleep, it is often because you fear tomorrow, fear exhaustion, fear failure. The mind transforms rest into a battlefield. But when you release striving, you also release fear. You remind yourself, even without perfect sleep, I will manage. Even without control, life continues. This softens the urgency, and in softening, sleep arrives. Non-striving also reshapes how you measure success. Many people treat rest like another achievement, another goal to master. But when you live this way, even sleep becomes stressful. The art of effortless effort shifts the frame. Rest is not an accomplishment, but a return to balance. You do not earn it, you allow it. This gentle reframing reduces pressure and opens space for true rest. Zen often uses metaphors of nature to explain this. Water flows effortlessly around rocks. It does not push, it does not resist. Bamboo bends in the storm and rises again when the wind passes. These images remind you that softness can be stronger than force. To sleep well, you must become like water, flowing instead of fighting. You must become like bamboo, yielding instead of breaking. This is the wisdom of non-striving. Over time, practicing effortless effort in sleep influences waking life. You notice how often you force conversations, force outcomes, force yourself into exhaustion. You begin to loosen in daily life, trusting that many things resolve when given space. This shift brings not only better rest, but deeper happiness. Life feels less like a war and more like a dance. Non-striving is also an antidote to perfectionism. The belief that you must perform even in rest, that you must sleep flawlessly, is another chain. To break it, you accept imperfection. Some nights will be restless, some sleep will be shallow, and that is part of the human condition. By embracing imperfection, you free yourself from the anxiety that blocks rest. Ironically, in accepting less, you often receive more. There is also a spiritual depth in non-striving. By surrendering the need to control, you align with the deeper rhythms of existence. You see that life unfolds beyond your command, and in that recognition, a profound peace arises. Sleep becomes more than rest. It becomes communion with the mystery that sustains all things. When you lie awake, struggling, remember this teaching. The very act of struggling is the barrier. The cure is not to try harder, but to soften. The art of non-striving is to meet rest as a guest, not a prize. You prepare a place, you open the door, and then you wait with patience. Sleep will arrive in its own time, as it always has. In this gentle way, you transform insomnia into insight, restlessness into release, and sleep into a nightly practice of wisdom. The practice of non-striving opens the door to rest by loosening the grip of control. Yet there is another doorway, subtle and often overlooked, that arises from the body itself. Long before the mind decides it is time to sleep, the body sends gentle signals. One of the clearest of these signals is the yawn. Most people dismiss it as nothing more than fatigue or boredom, but in Buddhist practice, yawning can be understood as an invitation, a sacred reminder that the body knows when it is ready to surrender. When treated with awareness, even the simplest act like yawning becomes a meditation, a moment of connection with the wisdom of the body. Yawning is often ridiculed, hidden behind hands, stifled in meetings, or seen as impolite. Yet in truth it is one of the most honest expressions of human nature. The body stretches open, the breath deepens, and the nervous system signals a shift. In the Buddhist view, Every natural movement of the body can be a teacher if you are willing to pay attention. Yawning is no different. It is not just a sign of sleepiness, but a gateway to a deeper state of rest. By bringing mindfulness to this act, you begin to cultivate a more intimate relationship with your body and its needs. Science offers some insight into the mystery of yawning. It is linked to shifts in brain temperature, oxygen intake, and even social bonding. But beyond the biological explanations lies a deeper truth. Yawning is a threshold. It signals that the body is preparing to step out of active striving and into surrender. When you yawn, the body is telling you it is time to soften. If you dismiss it, if you push through with caffeine or distraction, you override a natural rhythm. Over time, ignoring these signals creates imbalance, leading to chronic fatigue and disturbed sleep. Mindfulness asks you to stop and notice. What happens when you yawn? The face stretches wide, the lungs expand, the body involuntarily relaxes. If you bring awareness to this moment, you feel how the tension begins to dissolve. The yawn itself is an act of letting go, not forced but spontaneous. To meet it with mindfulness is to deepen its effect. Instead of hiding it or resisting it, you allow it fully, breathing into the spaciousness it creates. This is why some Buddhist teachers referred to yawning as a hidden meditation, an effortless practice of release woven into the fabric of daily life. The act of honoring a yawn can shift your entire relationship with rest. Rather than seeing it as a weakness or inconvenience, you begin to treat it as a sacred invitation. Each yawn becomes a bell of mindfulness, calling you back to your body. It reminds you that the body carries its own wisdom, often more reliable than the restless demands of the mind. In a culture that prizes constant activity, listening to the yawn is a radical act of compassion. It is saying yes to the body's truth, instead of bowing to the pressure of endless productivity. This awareness also cultivates humility. Yawning is not something you can control. It arises when it will, regardless of your plans. By embracing it, you accept that the body follows rhythms beyond your command. This acceptance is itself a form of surrender. It teaches you to trust, to allow, to honor the wisdom that flows through you without your effort. When you bring this trust into your nightly routine, sleep becomes less about forcing and more about allowing what is already unfolding. Practicing mindful yawning can be simple yet profound. When a yawn arises, pause. Do not rush past it. Feel the stretch in the jaw, the coolness of the breath as it enters, the softening that follows. Notice how, after a full yawn, the body feels more grounded, more ready to let go. This practice can be extended into bedtime. As you lie down, you may even invite yawns by gently opening the mouth and breathing deeply, not to fake the act but to create space for it to emerge naturally. With each yawn, you step closer to surrender. There is also a communal dimension to yawning. It is famously contagious. Seeing or hearing someone yawn often triggers your own. Rather than treating this as a quirk, Buddhist practice might see it as evidence of shared humanity. Yawning spreads because rest is a collective rhythm. The body responds to the bodies around it, reminding you that you are not separate. To practice mindful yawning is to remember that your rest too is part of a greater web. You breathe not only for yourself, but in harmony with life around you. Yawning also reflects the principle of impermanence. Each yawn arises suddenly, expands fully, and dissolves without effort. In this way, it is like a miniature cycle of life and death. By noticing it, you train yourself to observe how all experiences arise and pass. This prepares the mind for sleep, which itself is a nightly rehearsal of impermanence. Honoring a yawn, then, is not trivial. It is an act of training the mind to release gracefully. Children naturally know this. They do not hide their yawns or suppress them. They let them unfold with total presence, sometimes even laughing afterward. Adults lose this innocence, replacing it with shame or suppression. Returning to mindful yawning is like returning to that childlike wisdom, trusting the body's signals without judgment. It is a return to honesty, to simplicity, to compassion for your own limits. There is also a subtle, energetic quality to yawning. In many contemplative traditions, yawning is associated with shifts in energy flow, with the release of blocked tension. Some practitioners even see it as a sign that the body and mind are aligning, preparing for deeper states of meditation or rest. Whether or not you accept this interpretation, what is clear is that yawning marks a transition. It signals movement from activity to stillness, from control to surrender. By treating it with mindfulness, you allow that transition to deepen, carrying you more easily into rest. In daily life, yawning can become a reminder to pause. Even outside of bedtime, a sudden yawn may be the body's way of saying it needs a breath, a moment of release. Instead of reaching for another cup of coffee or forcing more productivity, you can use the yawn as a bell of awareness. Close your eyes for a moment, breathe, and let the body reset. This not only improves rest at night but also brings more balance to your waking hours. The practice of mindful yawning also teaches gratitude. Each time the body guides you toward rest, you have an opportunity to thank it. Gratitude turns even the smallest gesture into a gift. To thank the body for yawning is to recognize its wisdom, its care for you, its constant work to keep you balanced. Gratitude softens resistance and deepens the sense of compassion that is central to Buddhist practice. When approached with mindfulness, yawning ceases to be ordinary. It becomes extraordinary in its simplicity, a gateway hidden in plain sight, offering you a chance to align with the natural rhythms of life. By honoring it, you honor yourself. By following it, you move closer to the rest you seek. It is not through effort but through attention, not through control but through surrender, that this subtle gateway opens fully. The art of resting well is not built only on grand practices or long meditations. Sometimes it rests on the smallest gestures, the breath, the posture, the yawn. To recognize these cues and treat them with reverence is to live in harmony with the body and the mind. And when this harmony deepens, rest comes not as a struggle but as a natural unfolding. Each yawn, honored and received, carries you further along the path of release, until sleep itself arrives as the most natural surrender of all. Yawning shows the body's natural wisdom, guiding you gently toward surrender. When you honor that cue, the nervous system relaxes and the gateway to rest opens wider. But the body's signals are only part of the journey. The heart and mind also need care before sleep can deepen into true peace. If the heart is heavy with resentment, fear, or loneliness, the body may yawn, but rest will still resist. This is why ancient Buddhist teachings offer the 4 Brahmaviharas qualities of the awakened heart as nightly companions. When practiced before bed, they soften the mind, ease anxiety, and protect sleep from nightmares. The first is loving kindness, the steady wish for yourself and others to be well. To cultivate this before sleep is to wrap your mind in warmth rather than worry. Instead of rehearsing tomorrow's problems, you silently repeat phrases of goodwill. May I be safe, may I be at ease, may I rest in peace tonight. Then you extend it outward to loved ones, to strangers, even to those you struggle with. This gentle radiance changes the atmosphere of the mind. Neuroscience shows that such practices calm the amygdala, the brain's fear center, lowering anxiety. But beyond biology, the practice prepares your dreams. When the last thoughts of the day are kind ones, the night is less likely to bring terror. Instead, rest is guarded by benevolence. Compassion is the second quality. Where loving kindness offers goodwill, compassion responds to suffering. At night, the mind often replays mistakes or pain. Instead of pushing these away, compassion allows you to hold them gently. You acknowledge your own struggles without judgment, offering yourself care rather than criticism. This is vital because harshness toward yourself keeps the mind restless. Compassion softens the grip of self-blame, creating the conditions for release. Extending compassion outward is equally powerful. Many monks would fall asleep by reflecting, "Just as I suffer, countless beings suffer. May they all find relief." This broadening of perspective shrinks the prison of self-concern, replacing it with a tender awareness of the shared human condition. Dreams that rise from such a heart carry less loneliness, less violence, more connection. The third Brahmavihara is joy, but not the fleeting joy of achievement or possession. It is sympathetic joy, the ability to delight in the happiness of others. At night, instead of envying or comparing, you celebrate. You recall someone else's success, a child's laughter, a friend's good news, and you let that gladness fill you. This practice counteracts the envy and bitterness that often poison rest. The heart that rejoices easily is a light heart, one that sleeps without the burden of comparison. Even the body responds. Joy releases endorphins and balances hormones, supporting deeper cycles of rest. On the path of dream yoga, joy is also seen as protective. A joyful mind produces dreams that uplift rather than disturb. The final quality is equanimity. This is the balance that keeps the other three from turning into attachment or exhaustion. Loving kindness without equanimity can become clinging. Compassion without equanimity can become overwhelm. Joy without equanimity can become craving. Equanimity steadies them all. To cultivate it before bed is to remind yourself, things change, people come and go, the day has ended. You let go of the need to control outcomes. This balanced acceptance prevents the mind from grasping at tomorrow's uncertainties. Equanimity at night is like a blanket over the fire of the mind. It allows the flames of agitation to cool into glowing embers of calm. When these four qualities are woven into a nightly ritual, they transform the experience of sleep. Instead of entering the night burdened with unresolved emotions, you enter with a heart that has been cleansed. You drift off not in conflict but in peace. Buddhist texts often describe the Brahmaviharas as divine abodes, states of dwelling that elevate the heart. To fall asleep in such an abode is to rest in heaven, even while still alive. Nightmares are less likely because the mind is not seeded with violence or fear. Anxiety lessens because equanimity tempers desire and worry. The heart rests easier when it has been bathed in kindness. Practicing these meditations does not require hours. Just a few minutes of reflection is enough to shift the inner landscape. Some people repeat traditional phrases. Others visualize offering light or warmth to others. Some simply breathe and let these qualities arise naturally. The method matters less than the sincerity. What matters is that the final impressions of the day are wholesome, not tangled. In Buddhism, the state of mind at the moment of sleep influences the state of dreams. By practicing the Brahmaviharas, you shape your dreams toward clarity and compassion. There is also a karmic dimension. Each night is not only a preparation for rest, but also for tomorrow's life. By planting seeds of kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity at night, you nourish tendencies that blossom during the day. This continuity deepens practice. The heart trained at night is more resilient in daylight. Sleep and waking life begin to support each other in a cycle of peace. These meditations also strengthen the bond between self-compassion and compassion for others. If you practice only kindness toward others but neglect yourself, rest will remain shallow. If you care only for yourself but close your heart to others, rest will be restless. The Brahmaviharas balance both directions. They teach that care must flow in all directions, inward and outward, without discrimination. This balance is especially healing at night, when the boundaries of self loosen. To fall asleep with a heart that embraces both self and world is to rest in wholeness. In modern life, where anxiety and insomnia are common, this practice is revolutionary. Instead of fighting sleep with medication or distraction, you transform the cause, the state of the heart. Ancient monks knew that the mind's last impression before sleep carries immense weight. They deliberately ended the day with these meditations, ensuring that the night carried the fragrance of peace. This is not superstition, but psychology at its deepest. What you feed your heart becomes the climate of your rest. When nightmares do arise, the Brahma Viharas offer tools for response. Waking from fear, you can extend compassion to yourself, calming the heart. You can send kindness to the figures in the dream, seeing them as aspects of your own mind. You can rejoice in the simple fact of awakening, that the terror has passed. And you can steady yourself with equanimity, remembering that dreams are transient and empty. In this way, even nightmares become part of the practice, transformed into opportunities for the awakened heart. The beauty of this teaching is its accessibility. Anyone can practice it. You do not need advanced training or years of meditation experience. You need only sincerity and attention. Each night, as you prepare for bed, instead of scrolling through screens or worrying over tomorrow, you pause, you turn inward, you open the heart, and you rest in these 4 divine qualities. Over time, this becomes as natural as brushing your teeth. Sleep is no longer only physical repair, but also spiritual nourishment. In this way, the Brahma Viharas reveal themselves as more than meditations. They are medicines. Medicines for the restless mind, for the anxious heart, for the soul burdened by conflict. To end the day with them is to close the book of the day with grace, leaving no unfinished sentences. You enter sleep with a clear heart, and in that clarity, rest blossoms. Through loving kindness, you bathe the night in warmth. Through compassion, you soothe the wounds of the day. Through joy, you open to delight even in darkness. Through equanimity, you release control and surrender to peace. Together, they form a ritual that transforms sleep from a struggle into a sanctuary. And when you awaken, it is not only with a rested body, but with a heart renewed, ready to meet the world with the same qualities you carried into the night. When the heart has been softened by kindness, compassion, joy, and balance, sleep becomes lighter and dreams less troubled. Yet even with the purest intentions, there will be nights when rest does not come. The body turns, the mind circles, and the clock seems louder with every passing minute. Many people grow angry or fearful in these hours, thinking something is wrong with them, believing that wakefulness at night is a failure. But Buddhism offers another path. Instead of fighting wakefulness, you can transform it. Nighttime restlessness does not need to be an enemy. It can become a teacher. And one of the most direct ways to do this is through mindful walking. Walking meditation is one of the simplest yet most profound practices in Buddhism. Unlike seated meditation, which focuses on stillness, walking meditation uses movement as its anchor. Each step becomes a breath, each stride a chance to come home to the present. For someone restless at night, this practice is especially healing. The body that resists stillness often welcomes gentle movement. By walking mindfully, you soothe both muscles and mind, turning sleeplessness into an opportunity for awareness. The first step is to reframe restlessness. Instead of labeling it insomnia or a problem, see it as energy that needs to be guided. In Buddhist thought, suffering arises not from what happens, but from the resistance to what happens. When you fight wakefulness, you add a second layer of pain, anger, anxiety, frustration. When you accept it and choose to walk with it, the tension begins to dissolve. The practice is not about forcing sleep, but about using wakefulness as a chance to deepen mindfulness. To practice walking meditation at night, You do not need a large space. A hallway, a small room, even a few steps back and forth are enough. The key is attention. You place one foot on the ground with awareness, feeling the contact, the weight, the shift of balance, then the next. Breath flows naturally with each step. The mind anchors itself in the rhythm of movement. What was once a prison of tossing and turning becomes a sanctuary of gentle motion. There is a natural calming effect in this practice. Movement helps release the physical tension that often builds during restless nights. Muscles soften, the breath deepens, and the nervous system shifts from alertness to ease. But beyond biology, the practice carries spiritual depth. Each step becomes a symbol of letting go of expectation, of control, of the demand for sleep. You simply walk, aware, alive in the present moment. Some Buddhist teachers describe walking meditation as planting seeds with your feet. Each step lays down the intention of peace, of patience, of compassion. At night, when the world is quiet, this intention feels especially powerful. You are not merely pacing in frustration, you are cultivating the ground of your mind. In this way, sleeplessness becomes sacred. The practice also shifts your relationship with time. Restless nights often feel unbearable because you are counting hours, worrying about the morning. Time becomes an enemy, but in walking meditation, time dissolves. There is no rush, no deadline, only step after step. By entering this timeless rhythm, you remove the pressure that fuels insomnia. The night is no longer wasted, it becomes practice. Mindful walking also reveals the truth of impermanence. No step is the same as the one before. Each rise and fall of the foot is unique, never to be repeated. By noticing this, you train yourself to see how every moment arises and passes. The anxiety of wakefulness begins to feel less permanent. You see clearly, this too will pass. Even restlessness is transient, like a wave that rises and falls. This insight alone often brings peace, which in turn prepares the mind for rest. There is also compassion in walking meditation. As you walk, you can silently extend wishes for peace not only for yourself, but for others who are also awake in the night. The nurse working in a hospital, the parent caring for a sick child, the person lying restless in another bed across the city. By linking your practice to the wider web of humanity, loneliness dissolves. You see that your wakefulness connects you to others, and in wishing them well, your own burden lightens. For some, mindful walking at night becomes more than a remedy for restlessness. It becomes a treasured ritual. The silence of night, the absence of distractions, makes awareness sharper. Every sound, every sensation feels vivid. The creak of the floor, the coolness of the air, the rhythm of the breath, these details draw you into intimacy with life. What once felt like a curse becomes a gift, a time of deeper connection. Over time, this practice changes how you view sleeplessness altogether. Instead of fearing it, you begin to see it as another doorway to mindfulness. You no longer dread waking in the night. You know that if rest does not come, practice awaits. This trust removes the anxiety that feeds insomnia. Ironically, by no longer demanding sleep, you make it more likely to arrive. When the body feels safe, when the mind feels steady, rest often follows naturally after walking. Walking meditation also aligns with the body's rhythms. At night, the nervous system often carries the residue of the day, arguments, stress, screens. Movement helps discharge this energy. By walking slowly and mindfully, you give the body a way to process and release. When you return to bed, you do not carry the same weight. The ground beneath your feet has absorbed some of it, leaving you lighter. The practice can also be adapted. Some prefer silent walking, focusing only on the contact of foot and floor. Others pair it with breath awareness, synchronizing steps with inhalation and exhalation. Some integrate phrases such as peace with this step or release with this breath. Each adaptation carries the same essence, turning wakefulness into mindfulness. For those who fear the long nights, this practice restores agency. Instead of lying helpless, trapped in thought, you have a path to walk. Each step becomes a choice, a turning of suffering into practice. This empowerment itself eases anxiety. You are no longer at war with the night. You are walking with it, learning from it, resting in its silence even while awake. When sleep eventually returns, it does so not out of exhaustion but out of harmony. The mind has shifted from resistance to acceptance, the body from tension to ease. The quality of rest that follows walking meditation is often deeper, more nourishing. Dreams may feel calmer, the heart steadier. In this way, even insomnia becomes part of the path, another teacher on the journey of awareness and compassion. Nighttime restlessness is not a failure to sleep. It is an invitation to practice. By walking mindfully, you transform those hours into steps of peace. You discover that rest is not limited to lying down. Rest is the quality of presence, the quiet acceptance of what island. Each step at night becomes a testament to this truth. Even in wakefulness, you can rest. Even in sleeplessness, you can awaken. Walking meditation turns restlessness into presence, teaching you that even sleepless nights can carry meaning when you stop resisting and start walking with awareness. But there is a deeper layer beneath the surface of rest. Often, sleeplessness is not just about the body's rhythms or the mind's racing, it is the echo of how you live during the day. Buddhism teaches that sleep is not separate from conduct. The choices you make in speech, in food, in the media you consume, and in the way you treat others create subtle imprints that shape your nights. This is what can be called karmic detox, the cleansing of daily residue through mindful living, so that sleep comes naturally, unhindered by the weight of unexamined actions. Karma is not a mysterious punishment from the universe, but the simple law of cause and effect. Every word spoken, every action taken, and every thought entertained leaves an imprint on the mind. These imprints resurface when you are quiet, and the night is when they often appear most strongly. If your day has been filled with harsh speech, hurried consumption, and restless distraction, the mind will carry those impressions into bed. You may find yourself restless, haunted by echoes of arguments, overstimulated by media, or heavy from indulgence. The body may crave rest, but the mind resists because it has not been purified. Sleep hygiene, in this Buddhist sense, goes far beyond brushing teeth or dimming lights. It is about how you live from morning until evening. Ethical living is sleep hygiene. Speaking truthfully, avoiding gossip, practicing restraint, these are not only moral guidelines but practical foundations for peaceful rest. When your words do not harm others, they do not rebound as inner conflict at night. The heart rests easier when it is not carrying guilt or hidden shame. A mind free from unnecessary harm slips more naturally into stillness. The food you eat also shapes sleep. Heavy, greasy, or excessive meals late in the day burden the body. Overindulgence disturbs the subtle rhythms needed for rest. In monasteries, meals are often taken earlier, not only for discipline but because the body rests more easily when digestion is not overworked at night. Mindful consumption is not deprivation, it is compassion for the body's limits. By choosing lighter, nourishing foods in the evening, you honor the body's need for balance. When the body feels light, the mind follows. Media consumption is another form of intake often overlooked. What you watch, read, and listen to leaves impressions as surely as food does. Violent images, endless scrolling, anxious news. These feed the mind in ways that linger long after the screens go dark. When you try to sleep, the echoes replay as restless thoughts or unsettling dreams. Buddhist discipline emphasizes guarding the senses, not to withdraw from life, but to protect the clarity of the mind. By choosing what you consume with care, you detoxify the heart. Just as you would not drink poison before bed, you can learn not to feed your mind with toxins that disturb rest. This karmic detox is not about perfection, but about awareness. The question is not whether you have consumed too much or spoken harshly, but whether you recognize the effects. Awareness allows adjustment. If you notice your heart is heavy from unkind words, you can practice forgiveness before bed. If you feel overfull from food, you can breathe deeply, acknowledge the body's work, and resolve to care more gently tomorrow. If you are overstimulated by media, you can pause, allow silence, and give the mind time to settle. Each step is an act of compassion, cleansing the residues of the day so they do not follow you into the night. Ethical living also extends to relationships. Resentments carried into the night become knots in sleep, surfacing as conflict in dreams or restlessness in the body. The practice of reconciliation, speaking honestly, forgiving quickly, softening grudges, acts as karmic hygiene. When you close the day without heavy grudges, the night becomes lighter. This is why many Buddhist teachers encouraged resolving conflicts before sleep, not letting anger harden overnight. To detox the heart is to protect the sanctuary of rest. Mindful consumption of time also plays a role. Filling the day with endless activity, never allowing pauses, creates a residue of restlessness that surfaces when you finally lie down. The nervous system, overstimulated, cannot simply switch off. By balancing activity with moments of stillness throughout the day, you prevent the buildup of this agitation. Walking slowly, breathing consciously, taking pauses, these small acts accumulate into a calmer night. Rest is not something you achieve only at bedtime. It is woven into the way you live each hour. There is a karmic link between compassion and sleep. When you act with kindness, when you live with integrity, the mind trusts itself. It does not need to replay conversations or question motives. This trust is the bedrock of rest. Conversely, when your actions are harmful or careless, the mind resists sleep. It circles, reviews, defends itself, trying to justify or erase what was done. This agitation is not punishment. It is the natural consequence of inner conflict. Ethical living clears the mind's conscience, creating space for stillness to settle naturally. Buddhist monastic codes highlight this connection. Monks and nuns keep strict precepts not only for spiritual progress, but also because a disciplined life produces peace. Simplicity in possessions, moderation in eating, honesty in speech, these create a lightness of being that supports deep rest. The same applies in ordinary life. Simplicity, moderation, and honesty are not lofty ideals, but practical ways to prepare the body and mind for sleep each night. The practice of karmic detox before bed can be structured as a gentle ritual. Reflect on the day's actions, acknowledge where you spoke with care and where you failed. Offer forgiveness to yourself and others. Review what you consumed, physically and mentally, and resolve to nourish yourself more wisely tomorrow. Let gratitude arise for the good that was done. In this way, you cleanse the heart. The mind, no longer carrying the heavy residue of the day, enters sleep with ease. There is also a subtle teaching here. Sleep itself can be viewed as a karmic mirror. If your nights are restless, they may be reflecting unexamined habits. If your dreams are agitated, they may be pointing to unresolved tensions. By listening to these reflections, you can adjust your conduct. Sleep then becomes not only a place of rest, but a form of feedback. It shows you how aligned or misaligned your daily actions are with the principles of balance and compassion. Over time, practicing karmic detox transforms the entire cycle of living and resting. Days become lighter because you are more aware of what you say, do, and consume. Nights become deeper because the heart is unburdened. This balance reinforces itself. Ethical living leads to peaceful sleep. Peaceful sleep strengthens ethical living. The cycle becomes one of healing rather than harm. To live mindfully is to rest mindfully. Each choice, each word, each intake is a seed planted in the soil of the mind. At night, those seeds sprout as dreams, emotions, or silence. By tending carefully to what you plant, you cultivate nights of ease and mornings of clarity. Sleep hygiene in the Buddhist sense is therefore not merely routine. It is a practice of compassion woven into every moment of the day. Rest that arises from karmic detox is not only longer or deeper, it is purer. The mind does not toss with guilt, the body does not resist with heaviness, the heart does not ache with unhealed wounds. Sleep becomes a sanctuary, a true refuge, because it is supported by the integrity of your waking life. In this way, each night is not a break from living, but the fruit of how you live. And when you wake, renewed, the cycle continues with clarity, carrying you forward into another day of mindful choices and compassionate presence. Cleansing your actions, words, and choices during the day clears the mind and prepares the heart for rest at night. Yet even with an unburdened conscience, the body sometimes carries hidden tension. Muscles tighten, the nervous system remains alert, and the mind, though calm, does not fully release. This is where breath becomes the bridge. In Buddhist practice, the breath is more than oxygen exchange. It is the rhythm of life itself, a thread connecting body, mind, and awareness. By shaping this rhythm with care, you can guide the nervous system into tranquility and open the body to serene sleep. Ancient practitioners discovered that specific breathing patterns influenced not only the physical body, but also the subtle flow of energy and the balance of the mind. While many people today treat breathing exercises as relaxation techniques, Buddhist breathing ratios were seen as gateways into deeper states of calm and insight. The length of each inhale, the pause before exhale, and the softness of release all shape the mind's landscape. When aligned, these rhythms create harmony between body and awareness, dissolving the agitation that often keeps people awake. The principle is simple. The nervous system responds to breath. Rapid, shallow breathing signals danger, keeping the body alert. Slow, steady breathing signals safety, allowing the body to rest. But Buddhist teachers refined this further. They observed that not just slowness, but proportion matters. Balancing inhale, pause, and exhale in particular ways created profound stillness. These ratios became part of meditative traditions, preparing practitioners not only for sleep, but for deeper states of concentration and even liberation. One of the most well-known ratios is extending the exhale longer than the inhale. For example, inhaling gently for 4 counts and exhaling for 6 or 8. This pattern stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest and digestion. Each long exhale tells the body it is safe, that vigilance is no longer needed. When practiced before bed, this ratio soothes racing thoughts and relaxes the heart rate, allowing sleep to arrive naturally. Unlike forcing stillness, the breath trains the body from within, shifting it into ease. There are also practices that emphasize equal breathing, inhale and exhale of the same length. This symmetry creates balance, stabilizing the mind. In Buddhist teachings, balance is essential. Too much effort leads to strain, too little to dullness. Equal breathing reflects this middle path. When practiced with awareness, it harmonizes inner energies, making the transition from wakefulness to rest smoother. This pattern is especially helpful when the mind feels scattered, restoring equilibrium before surrendering to sleep. Another ratio involves pauses, gentle spaces between inhale and exhale. These pauses are not forced holding but moments of stillness, like resting at the top of a wave before it falls. In Buddhist meditation, these gaps are precious. They reflect the silence beneath constant activity. Bringing awareness to these pauses before bed trains the mind to rest in stillness rather than chasing thoughts. Even a brief pause can reset the nervous system, offering a taste of the spacious calm that leads naturally to sleep. These breathing practices also connect to the understanding of energy channels, or prana, in Buddhist and yogic traditions. The breath is seen as the carrier of subtle energy, shaping how mind and body function. Agitated breathing scatters energy, steady breathing collects and centers it. At night, this centering is crucial. Without it, dreams become restless, sleep becomes shallow, and the body wakes unrefreshed. With mindful breathing ratios, energy aligns, supporting not only sleep but also clarity upon waking. The practice is not mechanical counting but mindful attention. Numbers can guide you, but the essence is awareness of the breath's quality. Is it rough or smooth, shallow or deep, restless or steady? By noticing and gently shaping the rhythm, you train the mind to soften and the body to follow. Over time, the ratios become natural. The body remembers them, slipping into calm without effort. This is why monks emphasize daily breathing practice, not as an isolated exercise, but as a lifelong habit of aligning breath and awareness. The effects of these breathing ratios extend beyond the night. Practicing them regularly conditions the nervous system to remain calmer throughout the day. Anxiety lessens, emotional reactivity decreases, and resilience strengthens. Sleep then becomes part of a greater cycle. Calm days support restful nights. Restful nights support calm days. This continuity reflects the Buddhist insight that there is no separation between moments. Each breath carries the seed of the next. Breathing ratios also carry symbolic depth. Inhaling represents receiving life. Exhaling represents letting go. By lengthening the exhale, you practice release of control, of tension, of clinging. Each breath becomes a rehearsal of impermanence, teaching you that holding is temporary and release is natural. This lesson, practiced night after night, shapes not only sleep, but the way you meet life. You become more willing to let go of worries, conflicts, and desires, because your very breath has trained you in release. Some practitioners combine breathing with visualization. With each inhale, they sense peace entering. With each exhale, they release heaviness or agitation. This layering of awareness deepens the effect, transforming the act into meditation. At night, this can be especially potent. As the mind weaves images easily in the dark, pairing breath with wholesome imagery cleanses the subconscious, preparing the ground for gentle dreams. What makes these ancient breathing practices powerful is their accessibility. They require no tools, no environment, only awareness. Whether lying in bed, sitting quietly, or even standing in a dim room, you can begin. A few minutes of balanced breath shifts the entire climate of the mind. Unlike forceful efforts to sleep, which increase tension, these practices dissolve effort. They embody the principle of wu-wei rest, arising from alignment, not control. There is also humility in working with breath. You realize that life itself is carried by something so simple, so constant, yet so overlooked. Each breath is both fragile and sustaining, a reminder of impermanence and continuity. By honoring it before sleep, you turn the most ordinary act into sacred practice. This reverence transforms the night. Instead of collapsing into exhaustion, you enter sleep consciously, carried by rhythms that connect you to centuries of practice. Over time, the Buddhist breathing ratios become second nature. You no longer need to think about counts or techniques. The body finds its way into tranquility. Sleep becomes smoother, not as an escape, but as a continuation of mindful living. And when you awaken, the residue of practice remains, a mind steadier, a heart lighter, and a body attuned to balance. Through breath, you detoxify not only the body, but also the mind's agitation. Through rhythm, you align with the deeper currents of life. And through mindful practice, you discover that the key to serene sleep has always been carried in the rise and fall of each breath, waiting for your attention. In this way, the night becomes a temple, and the breath its prayer, leading you gently into the sanctuary of rest. The breath, steady and balanced, quiets the nervous system and lays the ground for rest. Yet even when the body is calm, the mind often keeps speaking. Thoughts rise like waves, circling again and again. Memories, worries, unfinished conversations, predictions about tomorrow. This mental chatter is one of the deepest obstacles to sleep. The body may be ready to let go, but the mind insists on rehearsing its stories. Buddhism offers a remedy for this ancient struggle: the power of mantra. Sacred syllables, repeated with awareness, act like keys that unlock silence. They dissolve agitation in the subconscious and invite the mind to rest in sound rather than in chaos. A mantra is not magic in the sense of superstition. Its power lies in rhythm, vibration, and focus. When the mind is restless, it clings to words and thoughts. By offering it a single word, a phrase, or a sound to repeat, you give it a channel. Instead of scattering across endless concerns, the mind gathers around one steady rhythm. Over time, this repetition silences the loops. The sound becomes a lullaby, not for children, but for the wandering mind. In Buddhism, mantras carry both meaning and energy. Some are phrases expressing compassion, wisdom, or surrender. Others are seed syllables, sounds that are said to resonate with the deepest layers of consciousness. Regardless of form, their purpose is the same: to bring the mind home. Before sleep, when mental noise is loudest, mantra becomes a bridge into stillness. It is not about forcing silence, but about redirecting attention from endless chatter to something steady and sacred. One of the most well-known mantras is Om Mani Padme Hum, associated with compassion. Each syllable is said to purify different aspects of being. Repeated gently before bed, it not only calms the mind, but also aligns the heart with compassion, softening dreams and reducing fear. Another simple practice is the repetition of Om, the primal sound of creation. Its vibration resonates deeply in the body, grounding the restless mind. Even without spiritual associations, the steady rhythm of repetition calms the nervous system, much like a lullaby sung by a parent. The power of mantras lies not only in sound, but in intention. When you chant, you are not merely repeating syllables, you are planting seeds. If the seed is compassion, the night carries compassion. If the seed is peace, the night carries peace. The subconscious, which often drives dreams and restlessness, absorbs these seeds. Instead of random chatter shaping your inner world, deliberate words guide it. This is karmic hygiene for the mind, choosing carefully what you feed it before surrendering to sleep. Mantra practice also reveals something about the nature of thought itself. When you repeat a phrase with full attention, you notice how other thoughts still try to intrude. At first they interrupt, pulling you into distraction. But with gentle persistence, the mantra holds steady. Slowly, the interruptions grow weaker, the gaps of silence grow longer. This teaches you firsthand that thoughts are not permanent storms but fleeting visitors. By anchoring in sound, you discover the mind's capacity for stillness. Chanting before sleep can be done aloud or silently. Aloud, the vibration resonates through the body, loosening tension in the chest and throat. Silently, it penetrates deeper into the mind, filling the space usually occupied by chatter. Both forms are effective. What matters is sincerity. The repetition should not be mechanical but heartfelt, as if each syllable is a doorway into peace. Over time, the mantra may continue even in dreams, guiding the subconscious into calmer states. There is also a physiological effect. Studies show that chanting slows the breath, lowers heart rate, and stimulates the vagus nerve, all of which support deep rest. The rhythm of sound aligns with the rhythm of breath, creating coherence between body and mind. When practiced regularly, this conditioning makes the transition to sleep smoother. The body begins to associate